After traveling the long, lonesome highways of West Texas, I arrived in the small town of Alpine, which would serve as my home for the next 3 days. Alpine is the county seat of Brewster County and has a population of about 6,000 people. It bills itself as the gateway to Big Bend National Park, and unless you're planning on staying in the national park, Alpine and the nearby town of Marathon offer the only accommodations near the entrance to the park. That is, if you call a 70-mile drive nearby. It took me about 90 minutes to make the 70-mile drive from my hotel in Alpine to the entrance to Big Bend National Park, but the drive seemed much shorter as I was treated to the magnificent beauty of the vast West Texas landscape. Big Bend National Park is one of our most remote national parks, attracting about 500,000 visitors a year, and the park encompasses about 800,000 acres or 1,200 square miles. During my visit in late March, the temperatures were in the mid-80s in the early morning, but rose to the mid-90s by noon in the early afternoon. One of the park's rangers at the visitor center said that they had had temperatures close to 100 the week before my visit. And during the summer months, the Big Bend climate is unforgiving, as the heat in the park sometimes soars to well over 100 degrees. Rangers caution visitors to carry plenty of water and food as they are basically on their own. Cell service is spotty at best, and the only gas station I encountered was near the Panther Junction Ranger Station. There's no way that I can describe the beauty of Big Bend, so I'm going to sit back and be quiet for a few minutes and let you enjoy the barren beauty that is Big Bend National Park. One of my last stops during my 2-day visit to Big Bend National Park was at St. Helena Canyon. The narrow canyon carved by the Rio Grande is one of the park's most popular areas, as hikers and river runners in canoes often spend the night here. At its highest point, the canyon walls tower more than 1,500 feet above the river below. St. Helena Canyon is really a must-see location for anyone visiting the Big Bend National Park. After spending 2 full days touring the Big Bend National Park, it was time to move on. As I said earlier, Big Bend is remote, and getting there takes some effort and planning. But once you're here, you will be treated to spectacular views and rugged beauty at every turn. The Big Bend National Park is well worth the effort and should be on everyone's bucket list. Before leaving Alpine, I decided to make the 30-mile trip north to the Fort Davis National Historical Site. Fort Davis is located in Jeff Davis County, Texas, and like the county, it's named for the Secretary of War, Jefferson Davis. Yes, the same Jefferson Davis that went on to become President of the Confederacy. From 1854 to 1891, troops were assigned here to protect travelers on the old San Antonio-El Paso Road. The fort was one of the most active forts in the southwestern United States. Today, a large part of the fort is in ruins, but a number of the buildings, including the officers' quarters and the enlisted men's barracks, have been preserved to serve as a museum, to give visitors a look at what life was like on the southwestern frontier during the middle 1800s. After leaving Fort Davis, I made my way back to Alpine and headed north on Highway 90 toward Marfa. People around here will be more than happy to tell you about the Marfa mystery lights that were first reported around 1957. The legend of the Marfa lights is so popular that a viewing area has been built on the side of Highway 90. I must admit that while staying in Alpine, I made the drive up to the viewing area just to see if I could see the mystery lights. I spent 2 nights here, arriving about 9 p.m. and staying until about 11, but didn't see anything. But I wasn't the only curious person, as both nights there were 10 to 15 other curious onlookers. Just a few miles north of the Marfa Lights viewing area is the town of Marfa, Texas, which is the county seat of Presidio County. Marfa's claim to fame is that it was the filming location of the 1956 movie Giant. The movie starred the likes of Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor, James Dean, and Dennis Hopper, just to name a few. And many of those stars stayed here at the historic Hotel Presidio in downtown Marfa. And the hotel is still in business today. After leaving Marfa, I was driving along Highway 90 on the way to El Paso when I came across a small building with the name Prada on the front of it, and I had to stop and investigate. Inside the small building was handbags and shoes. I later learned that this was an art display that was created in 2005. But soon people began breaking into it and stealing the shoes and handbags, and to combat the problem, security cameras and alarms were installed. And the handbags today have no bottoms, and the shoes are all for the right foot. I must say, this was the last thing I expected to find driving along a long, lonesome highway in the state of Texas. After a quick stop for gas in Van Horn, Texas, I picked up Interstate 10 and headed toward El Paso, arriving in the late afternoon. I made a quick stop at the Sun Bowl Stadium before ending the day in New Mexico. For the first time in more than 20 days, I find myself in another state. But the adventure is far from over. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to keep up with my adventures, please hit that subscribe button. But for now, it's time for me to head on down the road and see what's around the bend.